The FBI agent's hands were covered in blood from clawing at the shattered windshield when Navy SEAL Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cross found her trapped in the ravine. And the first thing she said when he touched her shoulder wasn't "thank you" or "help me," but a desperate whisper through cracked lips. I can't see anything, and they're coming back to finish the job." Her German Shepherd K9 partner, Dakota, stood guard over the wreckage with 3 bullet wounds in his side, still protecting her even while dying. And when Ethan looked up the mountain, he saw what she couldn't: muzzle flashes from rifle scopes zeroing in on their position. Professional killers confirming the crash that was supposed to look like an accident had actually succeeded in eliminating the one federal agent who could destroy a billion-dollar criminal empire. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because this story will take you places you never expected, and we need you with us for every single moment. Drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories of courage and sacrifice travel across our great country. Stay with us all the way to the end, because what happens next will break your heart and rebuild it stronger. Ethan Cross had been hiking alone in Colorado's Rocky Mountains, trying to outrun the kind of memories that followed SEALs home from bad missions, when Dakota's behavior changed from casual companion to combat alert. The German Shepherd froze mid-step, ears forward, hackles raised, his tan and black coat bristling with tension that made Ethan's training kick in before his conscious mind caught up. "What is it, boy?" Ethan's hand went to the Sig Sauer he carried even on leave, because some habits weren't optional when you'd spent 10 years in naval special warfare. Dakota didn't bark, didn't whine, just moved with purpose toward the edge of the trail, where the ground dropped away into a steep ravine. Ethan followed and saw it. Fresh skid marks in the dirt, broken vegetation, and about 60 feet down, a black SUV wrapped around a pine tree with steam rising from the crumpled hood. He started down the slope without thinking, because thinking meant calculating risk, and risk meant maybe not going, and someone in that vehicle might still be alive. Dakota bounded ahead, moving with the sure-footedness of a working dog who knew his job was to find people, and Ethan's job was to save them. The SUV's driver's side door was crushed beyond opening, but the passenger side hung ajar, glass everywhere, deployed airbags deflating like dying lungs. Ethan pulled the door fully open and found her, a woman, late 20s, Asian American, wearing a blood-soaked FBI windbreaker over business clothes. Her dark hair was matted with blood from a head wound, and both her hands were pressed against the dashboard like she was trying to push away something only she could see. When Ethan touched her shoulder, she jerked violently, and her right hand swung toward where her service weapon should have been. "Federal agent, identify yourself!" Her voice came out strong, despite the blood running down her face. "Navy SEAL, ma'am. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cross. I'm here to help. Can you tell me your name?" "Special Agent Maya Chen, FBI Financial Crimes Division." Her hands were still moving, patting her jacket, searching for something. "My weapon. Where's my weapon? And Dakota, where's Dakota?" "Your K9's right here, ma'am. He's injured but standing." Ethan kept his voice calm, assessing her injuries while he talked. Head trauma, possible concussion, cuts and contusions. But she was conscious and verbal, which meant she wasn't critical yet. "Can you tell me what hurts?" Maya's hands stopped moving and went to her face, touching her eyes with fingers that shook. "I can't see. Oh God, I can't see anything. Everything's black. Why is everything black?" Ethan felt ice slide through his veins, because blindness from head trauma meant serious injury, meant possible permanent damage, meant this woman's life had just changed in ways she hadn't begun to process. "You've got a head wound, probably affecting your vision temporarily. I need you to stay calm while I check you for other injuries." "Temporarily." Maya's laugh came out broken. You're lying. I can feel it. My eyes are open, but there's nothing. Just black. Just... Her breathing started to accelerate toward panic. Agent Chen, I need you to focus. Can you tell me what happened? Was this an accident? Maya's face changed, panic shifting to something harder, more focused. No accident. They ran me off the road. Black sedan, professional drivers. Forced me into the guardrail, then pushed me over the edge. I tried to brake, but... She stopped, her hand finding Dakota, who'd pressed himself against the passenger side door. My dog, is he okay? Tell me he's okay. Ethan examined the German Shepherd and saw what he'd missed in the initial chaos. 3 bullet wounds, 2 in the shoulder, 1 in the ribs. All of them bleeding, but none immediately fatal if treated fast. He's been shot, 3 rounds. He needs a vet, but he's stable for now. They shot my dog. Maya's voice went flat, dead, the tone of someone processing trauma by shutting down emotion. They ran us off the road, and then they shot my dog to make sure we couldn't call for help. Her hands found the laptop bag wedged beside her seat and clutched it like a lifeline. The evidence. Did the laptop survive? I need to know if the laptop survived. Ma'am, right now I need to get you out of this vehicle and stabilized. The evidence can wait. No, it can't. Maya's blind eyes tracked toward his voice with unnerving accuracy. I'm supposed to testify before a federal grand jury in 18 hours. Without my testimony, without the evidence on that laptop, Victor Zhao walks free. $3 billion in laundered cryptocurrency. 2 senators on his payroll. God knows how many law enforcement officials he's compromised. 18 hours, Commander. That's all the time we have before the window closes and a monster goes free. Ethan pulled the laptop from its bag and checked it. Cracked screen, but powered on when he pressed the button. Password prompt appearing, which meant the data was intact. It's functional. Now let me get you out before this vehicle shifts and we both go down the rest of this ravine. He started working Maya free from the seatbelt, checking for spinal injury, making sure moving her wouldn't cause more damage. Dakota whined and tried to follow, but his injuries kept him pinned against the door. My dog comes with us, Maya said, and it wasn't a request. Your dog's got 3 bullets in him. Moving him could... My dog comes with us or I don't move. Her jaw set with the kind of stubborn determination Ethan recognized from every SEAL who'd ever refused to leave a teammate behind. Dakota saved my life. Someone shot at us while we were going over the edge. Fired through the windshield trying to kill me. Dakota took the rounds meant for my head. So either we both move or neither of us does. Ethan looked at the German Shepherd and saw the same loyalty he'd seen in combat dogs who died protecting their handlers. Okay, we'll move you both. But I'm doing this my way, which means you follow my instructions exactly. Understood? Understood. He got Maya out first, supporting her weight as she climbed through the passenger door, her movements uncertain without vision, trusting him completely because she had no other choice. Once she was stable on the slope, he went back for Dakota, and the dog tried to growl when Ethan approached, but couldn't manage more than a weak sound that broke Ethan's heart. Easy, boy. I'm getting you out. Your handler needs you. Ethan got his arms under the shepherd and lifted, feeling the dog's weight, feeling the wetness of blood soaking into his shirt. Dakota whined but didn't fight, some instinct telling him this human was trying to help. They made it 20 feet up the slope before Ethan heard it. Engines approaching on the road above, multiple vehicles moving fast. Maya heard it too, and her hand found his arm, gripping tight. That's them. They're coming back to make sure I'm dead. How do you know? Because I've been investigating Zhao for 2 years, and I know how his people operate. They don't leave loose ends. They'll search the wreckage, confirm the kill, destroy any evidence they find. Her voice dropped. Commander, I'm blind, I'm unarmed, and I can't run. If they find us, I'm dead, and your only chance is to leave me here and save yourself." Ethan adjusted his grip on Dakota and started moving faster up the slope, pulling Maya along. "Not how I'm built, ma'am. You're coming with me, and so is your dog." "You don't understand what you're getting into. Victor Zhao has billions of dollars and connections that go all the way to—" A rifle shot cracked through the air and bark exploded from a tree 6 inches from Ethan's head. He dropped flat, pulling Maya down with him, covering her body with his, while Dakota struggled between them. "They're shooting at us!" Maya's hands clutched at Ethan's tactical vest. "How many?" Ethan scanned the road above and counted 3 vehicles, at least 6 shooters, deploying with professional coordination that said these weren't street thugs. These were trained operators. 6 visible, probably more. Military tactics. They're setting up a perimeter sweep. Another shot, and this one hit close enough that Ethan felt the displaced air. They were ranging in, getting his position, preparing for the kill shot. "Can you return fire?" Maya asked. "Not without getting us both killed. We need to move." Ethan pulled her to her feet and started half-dragging, half-carrying her up the slope, while Dakota limped beside them, the shepherd refusing to be carried anymore, determined to move under his own power, even with 3 bullets in him. They made the top of the ravine, and Ethan pushed Maya into heavy brush, following with Dakota pressed against his chest. "Stay down, stay quiet. I'm going to draw them off." "No." Maya's hand found his arm with surprising accuracy for someone who couldn't see. "You leave me here, they find me, I'm dead. We stay together, or we die together." "Ma'am, with all due respect, I'm a Navy SEAL trained for exactly this kind of situation. You're a federal agent who investigates financial crimes. Let me do my job." Maya's face was streaked with blood and dirt, but her expression held steel. "Fine, then here's me doing my job. I'm ordering you, as a federal law enforcement officer, to protect a witness with critical testimony in a case involving national security implications. That's not a request, Commander. That's a lawful order from someone who outranks you in this jurisdiction." Ethan stared at her and felt something that might have been respect or might have been frustration. "You're blind, bleeding, and giving me orders?" "I'm FBI, and you're not, which means in civilian law enforcement matters, I outrank everyone who isn't wearing a federal badge. So yes, I'm giving you orders." She paused. "Please, I know I can't fight. I know I'm a liability. But I also know that laptop contains evidence of corruption that goes so deep it could destabilize our entire justice system if it comes out wrong. I need to survive the next 18 hours to testify. After that, you can leave me wherever you want." Voices carried through the trees. Men calling coordinates, organizing search patterns. They had maybe 3 minutes before the sweep reached their position. Ethan made a decision that would change everything after. "Can you walk if I guide you?" "I'll crawl if that's what it takes." "Walking's faster. Hold on to my belt. Follow my voice commands exactly. Don't question anything I tell you to do." He shifted Dakota's weight. "Your dog's going to slow us down." "Then we'll all be slow together." Maya found Dakota, and her hand rested on his head. "He took bullets for me. I won't leave him." They started moving through the forest, Ethan navigating, Maya following with one hand on his belt and the other on Dakota, who limped between them, leaving a blood trail any competent tracker would follow in minutes. Behind them, the voices got closer, and Ethan heard the distinctive click of safeties being switched off. "How far to civilization?" Maya asked, voice low. 15 miles to the nearest town, 20 to anything with law enforcement presence." "We'll never make it, not with me blind and Dakota injured." "Then we don't go to civilization. We go to ground. There's a hunting cabin about 4 miles north, off trail, probably empty this time of year. We hole up there, treat your injuries and your dog's, figure out our next move." They'll be tracking us. Blood trail from Dakota, my footprints, broken vegetation. Let them track. I've spent 10 years teaching SEALs how to evade pursuit. These guys are good, but I'm better. Ethan kept moving, setting a pace that was fast enough to create distance, but slow enough that Maya could follow without falling. Tell me about Victor Zhao. Who is he, and why does he want you dead bad enough to send a hit team into the Colorado wilderness? Maya's breathing was labored, but she kept talking, because talking meant staying conscious, staying focused. Zhao's a Chinese-American businessman, legitimate on paper, runs import-export companies and tech startups. Underground, he's the largest cryptocurrency launderer in North America. Moves money for cartels, for Chinese organized crime, for anyone with enough cash and willingness to pay his 15% fee. How'd you get onto him? Started with a routine financial disclosure investigation on a senator who reported suspiciously large campaign donations from shell companies. Traced the money back through 6 layers of corporate structures and found Zhao at the center. Spent 2 years building the case, identifying his network, documenting every transaction. Her voice went quiet. Found things I wasn't supposed to find. Names I wasn't supposed to know. People in positions of power who were supposed to protect this country, taking money from a man who's financing fentanyl trafficking that's killing 70,000 Americans a year. A branch snapped behind them, and Ethan spun, weapon drawn. But it was just a deer spooked by their passage. He forced his heart rate down and kept moving. How many names? He asked. 17 federal officials, 3 senators, 2 federal judges, 12 law enforcement personnel, ranging from DEA agents to FBI supervisors to local police chiefs in major cities. Maya stumbled, and Ethan caught her, steadying her until she found her balance again. The laptop has everything. Financial records, encrypted communications. I got warrants to intercept. Testimony from Zhao's bookkeeper, who turned witness after we promised him immunity. It's ironclad, Commander. Every transaction documented, every payoff traced, every connection proven. But without me to testify, without me to authenticate the evidence and explain how I obtained it legally, defense attorneys will tear it apart on procedural grounds. Ethan heard what she wasn't saying. You're the case, not just a witness. The entire prosecution depends on you showing up tomorrow. Yes. And Zhao knows that, which is why he's willing to risk everything to kill you before you can testify. He's not risking anything. He owns enough people in law enforcement that he probably has real-time updates on investigation status. Probably knew the grand jury schedule before I did. Probably had this hit planned for weeks. Maya's hand tightened on his belt. I should have seen it coming.
Should have requested protective detail. But I thought... Her voice broke. I thought I was smarter than him.
Dakota whined and stumbled, his legs giving out. Ethan caught the shepherd before he hit the ground and checked his injuries. The bleeding was worse, the dog's breathing shallow. They needed to stop, needed to treat these wounds, but stopping meant dying when the pursuit caught up. How much farther? Maya asked, hearing Ethan's silence and understanding what it meant. 2 miles, maybe less. He got Dakota positioned across his shoulders, the dog's weight added to everything else he was carrying. We're going to make it, all 3 of us. You can't promise that. I just did. Ethan started moving faster, ignoring the burn in his legs, ignoring the voice in his head that said this was suicide, that protecting a blind FBI agent and a dying K9 while evading professional killers through hostile terrain violated every tactical principle he'd ever learned. But there were principles higher than tactics. There were choices that defined who you were when nobody was watching, and nothing you did mattered, except to the people you saved. Maya Chen needed to survive 18 more hours to bring down a criminal network destroying American lives. Dakota had taken 3 bullets protecting his handler, and deserved better than bleeding out in the mountains. And Ethan Cross had spent his entire adult life training to do impossible things in bad situations. This qualified. He pushed forward, while behind them the voices grew closer, and Dakota's blood soaked through his uniform. And Maya followed blind and trusting in the darkness that had become her whole world. The hunting cabin appeared through the trees, like an answer to a prayer Ethan hadn't known he was praying. And somewhere in the forest, men with guns and orders were closing in, ready to finish what they'd started when they ran Maya Chen off that mountain road. Ethan kicked the cabin door hard enough to splinter the aging lock and pulled Maya inside while Dakota collapsed on the floor, his breathing ragged and wet in a way that said internal bleeding was joining the external kind. The cabin smelled like dust and mice and abandonment, but it had walls and a door, and that was more protection than they'd had 30 seconds ago. "Talk to me," Maya said, her hands reaching out, trying to orient herself in the darkness she couldn't escape. "What do we have? Where am I?" "Single room, maybe 15 by 20. Stone fireplace on the north wall. One window facing south. Back door that looks like it hasn't been used in years." Ethan was already moving, checking sight lines, identifying escape routes, doing the tactical assessment that kept SEALs alive when situations went bad. No running water, no electricity, but there's firewood and what looks like an old medical kit on a shelf. "Don't light a fire. Smoke will give away our position." "I know." Ethan grabbed the medical kit and dropped beside Dakota, his hands finding the bullet wounds with practiced efficiency. The shepherd's eyes tracked him with dimming awareness, and Ethan felt his chest tighten because he'd seen that look before, in wounded teammates who were trying to hold on but losing the fight. "Your dog's in bad shape, Agent Chen. I need to extract these rounds and pack the wounds, but I don't have proper surgical tools or anesthesia." Maya moved toward Dakota's whine with the uncertain steps of someone navigating by sound alone. "Do what you have to do. Dakota's been trained to handle pain. He won't bite." "I'm not worried about him biting. I'm worried about him dying while I'm trying to save him." Ethan pulled out the kit's contents and found them inadequate. Basic bandages, outdated antibiotics, a suture kit that looked older than he was. "This isn't going to be clean or pretty." "Nothing about this situation is clean or pretty." Maya's hands found Dakota, and she knelt beside him, her face close to his, whispering something Ethan couldn't hear. Then she looked up toward Ethan's voice. "Do it fast. The longer we wait, the worse his chances." Ethan started working, using a folding knife sterilized over his lighter flame to probe for the first bullet. Dakota yelped once when the blade went in, but Maya's hands held him steady, her voice calm despite the tears running down her face. "I've got you, boy. I've got you. You're going to be okay, because you're the toughest dog I've ever known, and I need you." Her words came out broken, but determined. "I need you to survive this, because I can't see, and I'm terrified, and you're the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely." The first round came out, and Ethan packed the wound with gauze and pressure. 1 down, 2 to go. "How long until they find us?" "Depends how good their tracker is. Could be 20 minutes, could be 2 hours. Ethan moved to the second wound, deeper than the first, the bullet lodged against bone. "I can slow them down, but not stop them. Eventually they'll search every structure within 5 miles, and this cabin's on that list. Then we can't stay here. We need to keep moving. Your dog can't move. You can barely move. And I've got exactly 1 weapon with 2 spare magazines against at least 6 hostiles with professional training and better equipment." Ethan worked the second bullet free, and Dakota's breathing hitched, pain breaking through whatever endurance the shepherd had left. Sometimes tactical retreat means holding position and making the enemy come to you on ground you've prepared. Maya's laugh was bitter. That's a fancy way of saying we're trapped and you're planning to fight our way out. That's a realistic way of saying I'm a SEAL who's been in worse situations and lived through them. The second bullet clattered into a tin cup, and Ethan moved to the third wound, the worst of them, close to vital organs. Tell me about the laptop security. You said the evidence is encrypted? Biometric lock. Requires my retinal scan plus a 12-digit password plus thumbprint verification. Maya's hands were shaking on Dakota's fur. It's supposed to be unhackable. Supposed to protect the evidence if the laptop gets stolen or compromised. Can you bypass it? Not without my eyes working. Her voice went flat. The retinal scanner won't recognize damaged optic nerves. I've been trying to blink, trying to see even a shadow or a shape, but there's nothing. Just black. Just... She stopped herself. We need to get that laptop to the FBI. Even if I can't unlock it, their tech team might be able to. How? We've got no vehicle, no communication, and a hit squad between us and civilization. Ethan finished packing the third wound and started wrapping Dakota in bandages torn from an old blanket. Best case scenario, your dog stabilizes and we can move at dawn. Worst case, we're stuck here when they breach, and I'm fighting 6-to-1 odds while protecting a blind federal agent and a wounded K9. Maya's jaw set with a kind of stubborn determination Ethan was learning to recognize. Then we make them think we're not here. We create a false trail. Make them believe we kept moving. Buy ourselves time until rescue arrives. What rescue? Nobody knows we're here. FBI knows I was supposed to testify tomorrow. When I don't show up, when I don't answer my phone, they'll start searching. Maya pulled out her cell phone, and Ethan watched her fingers move across the screen with muscle memory, navigating by touch. I'm going to send my location to my supervisor. Tell him I need immediate extraction. Your phone's been off this whole time. I turned it off after the crash. Didn't want them tracking me. Her fingers kept moving, typing commands she couldn't see. But if I turn it on just long enough to send one message, if I do it from inside this cabin with thick walls, they'll triangulate the signal within 30 seconds and know exactly where we are. Ethan grabbed her wrist, stopping her before she could hit send. Agent Chen, turning that phone on is suicide. Not turning it on means we die here anyway when they find us. At least this way, FBI knows where to look for my body, and maybe they can recover the laptop. Maya pulled her hand free. I'm sending the message. Wait. Ethan's mind raced through tactical options. If you're going to risk the signal, make it count. Don't just send location, send everything. Upload the evidence files to FBI servers. Transmit the whole case, so even if we don't survive, the information does. Maya's face showed the conflict, the calculation. The files are too large. Would take 20 minutes minimum to upload over cellular. They'd be on us in 5. Then we send what we can, the most critical files, the ones that prove the highest level corruption. Ethan moved to the window and checked the tree line. Still clear, but that wouldn't last. You've got 5 minutes to decide what evidence is worth dying to protect. Maya's hands moved to the laptop and opened it, her fingers finding keys by touch, navigating blindly through files she'd organized with the methodical precision of someone who lived in data. Senator Patricia Morrison. She chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee. Took $4 million from Zhao over 3 years in exchange for blocking oversight legislation and killing investigations before they could gain traction. If we can prove she's compromised, it opens the door to investigate everyone she's protected. How big's the file? 60 megabytes. Financial transactions, intercepted emails, testimony from Zhao's accountant who documented every payment. Maya's voice was steady now, focused on the mission instead of her fear. I upload this, Morrison goes down, and her entire network of protection collapses. The other 16 officials lose their cover, and suddenly they're vulnerable. Ethan looked at Dakota, at the shepherd's labored breathing, at Maya's bloody face and sightless eyes. 60 megabytes over cellular meant 8 to 10 minutes of upload time. 8 to 10 minutes with a phone broadcasting their exact location to people who wanted them dead. "Do it," he said. "But the second that upload completes, we move. No matter what condition your dog's in, no matter how hard it is for you to walk blind. We send that file and we run. Because this cabin becomes a tomb the moment they know we're here." Maya nodded and started the upload while Ethan reinforced the door with furniture and checked his ammunition count one more time. 15 rounds in the current magazine, 2 full magazines in reserve. 45 rounds total against at least 6 hostiles who probably had hundreds. "Upload's running," Maya said. "Estimated time, 8 minutes, 40 seconds. Then we've got 8 minutes to prep. Can you shoot?" "I'm blind." "That wasn't the question. Can you physically operate a firearm?" Maya's hands went to where her service weapon should have been and found nothing. "They took my gun. Must have fallen out during the crash." Ethan pulled his backup piece, a compact Glock 19, and pressed it into her hands. 15 rounds, semi-auto, standard FBI issue, so you should know the feel. I'm not asking you to shoot accurately. I'm asking, if they breach that door and I go down, can you point this weapon towards sound and pull the trigger? Maya's fingers wrapped around the grip with familiar competence. "Yes." "Good, because if it comes to that, if they get past me, you empty the magazine toward any voice that isn't mine. Don't hesitate. Don't negotiate. Just shoot until the slide locks back on empty." Ethan moved back to the window. "And then you take Dakota and you run out the back door and you don't stop running until you hit civilization or they kill you. Those are your only 2 options." "What about you?" "I'll be dead by then, which means my options don't matter anymore." Ethan said it matter-of-factly, the way SEALs talked about acceptable casualties when the math said some people weren't coming home. "Upload's at 20%. How's your dog?" Maya's hand found Dakota, and her face crumpled with relief or grief or both. "He's breathing. Still bleeding, but breathing. That's enough for now." A sound outside made Ethan freeze. Not branches, not wind. Footsteps, multiple sets, moving tactical, spreading out to surround the cabin.
"Upload's at 40%,
Maya whispered.
We need 5 more minutes."
"We've got about 30 seconds. Ethan moved away from the window and positioned himself behind cover with clear lines of fire to both entrance points. "When I start shooting, you get on the floor behind the fireplace. Stone will stop bullets better than wood." Maya grabbed the laptop and started crawling, pulling Dakota with her, the shepherd whining but following his handler's commands, even half dead.
"How many?"
4 visible, probably more holding back. Ethan's phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen, seeing a number he didn't recognize. He answered it on speaker because his hands needed to stay on his weapon. A voice came through, calm and professional, and carrying the kind of authority that didn't need to shout. "Lieutenant Commander Cross, my name is Victor Zhao. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Maya's intake of breath was sharp enough to hear across the cabin. "Don't talk to him! Don't—" "Agent Chen." Zhao's voice shifted, taking on warmth like they were old friends. "I'm glad you survived the crash. Truly. I don't enjoy violence. It's messy and unpredictable and bad for business. I much prefer negotiation." Ethan kept his weapon trained on the door. "What do you want, Zhao?" "I want the laptop Agent Chen is currently uploading files from. I want her to stop the upload, power down the device, and bring it outside along with herself. In exchange, I let you both live. You go your way, I go mine. We never speak of this again. And if we refuse, then my people breach that cabin and everyone inside dies, including a very loyal German shepherd who deserves better than bleeding out on a cabin floor." Zhao paused. I know you're a SEAL, Commander. I know you're trained to fight impossible odds and win. But you're also smart enough to know when you're outmatched. 4 armed professionals outside, probably more you haven't spotted. 1 sidearm with limited ammunition. A blind federal agent and a dying dog to protect. The math doesn't work in your favor. Maya was shaking her head, mouthing the word no over and over. Uploads at 60%, Ethan said quietly. Zhao laughed. Yes, I know. I've been monitoring Agent Chen's cellular activity since she turned her phone on. Very clever trying to get the Morrison file to FBI servers before I could stop you. But my people have already blocked the transmission at the carrier level. Nothing's uploading, Agent Chen. You're burning battery power on a ghost signal while thinking you're saving the day. Maya's face went white. He's lying. The upload status shows what your phone thinks is happening, not what's actually happening. Zhao's voice carried pity. I told you, Agent Chen. I own people at every level of this operation. The cellular carrier executive who's rerouting your data? He's one of mine. Your upload is going nowhere except into a void where it will be deleted the moment you realize you've failed. Ethan watched the laptop screen and saw the upload bar continuing to climb. 70%. 75%. Either Zhao was telling the truth and they'd wasted precious minutes on nothing, or he was lying to get them to stop trying. Maya, is there any way to verify the upload is actually completing? Her fingers moved across the keyboard, typing commands, checking protocols. Then her face crumpled, and Ethan knew before she spoke. He's right. The upload's been routed to a dummy server. Nothing's transmitting to FBI. We just spent 8 minutes broadcasting our location for nothing. The phone in Ethan's hand went dead, and simultaneously, the cabin door exploded inward under breaching charge, smoke and splinters filling the air. Armed figures flooding through, with weapons raised and voices shouting commands that all meant the same thing: surrender or die. Ethan fired 3 rounds at the first silhouette and saw him drop. Fired 2 more at the second and missed as the figure dove left. Return fire punched through the walls, and Ethan pulled back behind cover while Maya screamed and Dakota tried to stand to protect his handler, even dying. Cease fire! Zhao's voice cut through the chaos. Cease fire! I want them alive! The shooting stopped, but the gun barrels stayed trained on Ethan's position. He had maybe 10 rounds left, and 4 hostiles with clear shots. The math Zhao had described, the math that said this was over. Commander Cross, come out with your hands visible. Agent Chen, you too. The dog can stay where he is. I'm not interested in killing animals. Ethan looked at Maya and saw her face set with determination that transcended fear. Don't give up, she whispered. Please, don't give up. I'm not giving up. I'm buying time. Ethan stood slowly, hands raised, weapon pointed at the ceiling in the universal gesture of surrender. We're coming out. Don't shoot. He helped Maya to her feet, and they walked toward the shattered door while Dakota whined behind them, and men with guns watched through scopes, ready to fire if Ethan made any move that looked aggressive. Victor Zhao stood outside the cabin, immaculate in an expensive coat despite the mountain wilderness, flanked by operators who moved like military veterans turned private security. He smiled when he saw Maya's blind eyes, and Ethan understood that this man enjoyed other people's pain in ways that transcended business. Agent Chen, you look terrible. Perhaps you should have taken the original offer to walk away from this investigation when I made it 6 months ago. Zhao gestured, and one of his men grabbed the laptop from inside the cabin. Delete everything. Wipe the drive. Burn the hardware when you're done. You're making a mistake, Maya said, her voice steady despite shaking hands. FBI knows I was investigating you. My disappearance will trigger... will trigger nothing because I'll provide them with evidence that you died in a tragic car accident. Your body will be found in the wreckage, burned beyond recognition, but identifiable through dental records I've already arranged. Your K9 partner will be found nearby, also dead from injuries sustained in the crash. Zhao's smile widened, and Commander Cross will simply disappear. Another veteran who went hiking and never came back. Tragic, but common enough in these mountains. Ethan was calculating angles, counting steps, measuring his chances of reaching Zhao before the operators cut him down. Not good. Maybe 5% probability of success.
Then one of the operators stepped closer to inspect Ethan, and the man's face came into light, and Ethan's blood turned to ice. Commander David Pierce, Navy SEAL. Ethan's teammate from 3 deployments. Someone he'd trusted with his life 100 times. Pierce met Ethan's eyes, and the recognition was mutual. "Cross, didn't expect to see you here." "Pierce," Ethan's voice came out flat. "Didn't expect to see you working for the people we swore to fight." "Yeah, well, turns out the people we swore to fight pay better than Uncle Sam." Pierce's weapon never wavered from Ethan's chest. "Nothing personal, brother. Just business." And Ethan understood with terrible clarity that this wasn't just about Maya's case anymore. This was about how deep the corruption went, how far it had penetrated, and whether anything they'd both fought for had ever actually meant what they thought it meant. Ethan stared at Pierce and felt something fundamental break inside him. Not rage exactly, more like the collapse of a structure he built his entire identity on. "How long, Dave? How long have you been on Zhao's payroll?" Pierce's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes that might have been shame or might have been calculation. "Does it matter?" "Yeah, it matters, because I watched you carry wounded teammates under fire. I watched you volunteer for the suicide missions nobody else would take. I watched you stand at funerals and tell families their sons died heroes." Ethan's voice went hard. "So yeah, it matters when that man sells out to a criminal who's killed more Americans with fentanyl than the Taliban ever managed with bullets." "Don't." Pierce's weapon wavered slightly. "Don't make this about patriotism or honor or any of that bullshit they fed us in training. I served 12 years, got shot 4 times, lost hearing in my left ear. And you know what the Navy gave me when I got out? A handshake, and a pension that doesn't cover rent in any city worth living in." Zhao watched the exchange with the interest of someone who enjoyed watching former allies destroy each other. "Commander Pierce makes a valid point. Your government asks young men to sacrifice everything, then discards them when they're no longer useful. I, on the other hand, appreciate talent and compensate it appropriately." Maya's blind eyes tracked toward Zhao's voice. "You compensate people to help you kill Americans? That's not business. That's treason." Strong word from someone who's about to disappear into a shallow grave. Zhao gestured to Pierce. "Finish them. Make it clean. We have a schedule to keep." Pierce raised his weapon, and Ethan saw the internal struggle play across his former teammate's face. The war between whatever humanity he had left, and the choice he'd already made by taking Zhao's money. "Dave, listen to me." Ethan kept his voice calm, conversational, the tone they'd used planning ops in hostile territory. "You pull that trigger, you're not just killing me. You're killing every value we fought for, every brother we lost, every reason we put on the uniform in the first place. I'm surviving. That's the only value that matters anymore." But Pierce's finger didn't move to the trigger. "That's what you tell yourself. But we both know survival isn't living. Not when you can't sleep because you see the faces of people you've killed for money instead of for something that mattered." Ethan took a step closer,
and 2 other operators immediately trained weapons on him. But Pierce held up a hand, stopping them. "Dave, you can walk away right now. Turn witness against Zhao. FBI will protect you, give you immunity, help you start over clean." Zhao laughed. "Commander Cross, you're wasting your breath. Pierce has been with me for 4 years. He's not walking away from $40 million in offshore accounts because you appeal to his long-dead conscience." Ethan felt the number hit him like a physical blow. 40 million. Pierce hadn't just sold out. He'd sold out big and repeatedly, and for long enough that there was no coming back from it. Maya's hand found Ethan's arm, her grip tight. $40 million, she repeated. "Pierce, you're in my files. I've been building a case on you for 18 months. You're not just hired muscle. You're coordinating Zhao's U.S. security operations, recruiting former military into his network. You're the bridge between organized crime and American special operations." Pierce's face went cold. "Then I guess you should have worked faster, Agent Chen, because now you're going to die without ever testifying." "Maybe, but FBI has my files backed up in 3 separate locations. You kill me, they'll come after every name in those files, including yours." "Including the 17 federal officials, including Senator Morrison, who's been protecting this whole operation." Maya's voice carried absolute certainty, despite her blindness. "You think you're surviving? You're just delaying your arrest. Every second you work for Zhao is another year added to your federal sentence." Pierce moved fast, crossing the distance to Maya and pressing his weapon against her temple. "Or I make this problem go away right now, and nobody ever finds your backup files, because nobody knows where to look." Dakota's snarl cut through the tension, the wounded shepherd somehow on his feet, limping toward Pierce with teeth bared, despite 3 bullets in him and blood loss that should have killed him already. "Your dog's got more loyalty than you do," Ethan said quietly. 3 bullets in him, and he's still trying to protect his partner. "What's your excuse, Dave?" Pierce's hand was shaking now, weapon pressed against Maya's head, finger on the trigger, and Ethan could see the internal battle raging. Pull the trigger and cross a line even Pierce's corrupted conscience couldn't come back from. Or lower the weapon and admit that 4 years of selling out hadn't completely destroyed the SEAL he used to be. Zhao's patience ran out. "Commander Pierce, if you're not going to do your job, I'll find someone who will." He pulled his own weapon and aimed at Maya. Everything happened in the space between heartbeats. Dakota launched himself at Zhao despite dying, 70 pounds of wounded dog hitting the criminal before he could fire. Pierce's weapon swung toward the dog, and Ethan moved, closing the distance and grabbing Pierce's arm, redirecting the shot into the ground. The other operators opened fire, and Ethan used Pierce as a shield, pulling him into the line of fire, feeling his former teammate's body jerk as rounds meant for Ethan found Pierce instead. Maya dropped to the ground and crawled toward the cabin, her hands finding Dakota, who was locked onto Zhao's arm, refusing to release even as Zhao beat him with his free hand. Ethan stripped Pierce's weapon and fired 3 controlled bursts, dropping 2 operators and sending the others scrambling for cover. He pulled Maya up and pushed her toward the back door of the cabin, while Dakota finally released Zhao and limped after his handler, loyalty stronger than dying. They crashed through the back exit and into the forest, Ethan firing covering shots while Maya ran blind, one hand on his belt, the other clutching Dakota's collar. All 3 of them moving on pure adrenaline and the understanding that stopping meant death. Behind them, Zhao screamed orders, and the forest erupted with muzzle flashes and the sound of trained operators executing a pursuit that should have ended with their targets dead in minutes. But Ethan had spent a decade learning to evade pursuit in terrain worse than this, and Maya had spent 2 years building a case that meant everything to her. And Dakota had already proven he'd die before he let his handler be taken. They ran. Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket, and he risked pulling it out, seeing a number he recognized. Maya's FBI supervisor. He answered it while running. "This is Lieutenant Commander Cross. I have Agent Chen. She's blind, injured, and being pursued by hostile operators working for Victor Zhao. We need immediate extraction." "Cross, this is Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Hall. Where's Agent Chen?" Ethan handed the phone to Maya, and she took it with shaking hands. "Marcus, it's me. I'm alive, but the case. The laptop's destroyed. Zhao's people got it. Everything's gone." "Maya, listen carefully. The laptop doesn't matter. We have everything." Maya stumbled, and Ethan caught her, keeping her moving while she processed Hall's words. "What do you mean, you have everything?" "You sent me an encrypted file 3 months ago. Said it was insurance in case something happened to you. Financial records, witness testimony, communications intercepts. The complete Morrison case, plus 14 other federal officials we didn't even know were compromised." Hall's voice carried relief and urgency. "We've been building parallel cases based on your data. The grand jury convened 6 hours ago. Indictments came down 30 minutes ago. Senator Morrison was arrested an hour ago, trying to board a private flight to the Cayman Islands." Tears streamed down Maya's face, and she laughed, the sound breaking with relief and disbelief. "I don't remember sending you that file. You were drunk at a retirement party and told me you'd just done something really stupid or really smart. You weren't sure which. Apparently, it was really smart." Ethan pulled them behind a fallen tree, while gunfire searched the forest, and Dakota pressed against Maya, panting hard, bleeding again, but refusing to stop. "Agent Hall, we need extraction, now. Zhao's got at least 4 operators hunting us, and one of them is Commander David Pierce, Navy SEAL, working as Zhao's head of security. Pierce is in our files. Maya's backup evidence identified him 18 months ago. We've had an arrest warrant ready since this morning." Hall paused. "FBI hostage rescue team is en route to your last known position. ETA 12 minutes. Can you hold that long?" Ethan looked at Maya's blind eyes and blood-streaked face, at Dakota's labored breathing and the blood trail they were leaving, at the muzzle flashes getting closer through the trees. "We'll hold." The call ended, and Maya grabbed Ethan's vest. "Marcus has the files. The case doesn't need me. You can leave me here. Take Dakota. Save yourself." "Not how this works. Ethan, I'm blind and slowing you down, and you're the bravest person I've met in 10 years of working with professionals trained to be brave." Ethan checked his ammunition, 6 rounds left, and started moving again, pulling Maya with him. "We survive this together, or we don't survive it at all." Dakota whined and collapsed, his legs finally giving out completely. Maya dropped beside him, and her hands found his face, tears falling onto his fur. "No, no, Dakota, you have to get up. Please, get up." The shepherd looked at his handler with eyes that were dimming, and Ethan understood they'd reached the moment every canine handler dreaded. The moment when loyalty and duty collided with mortality and lost. "Maya, he can't make it. We need to leave him." "I won't. I'm not leaving him to die alone in the woods." Maya's voice broke completely. "He took 3 bullets meant for me. He attacked armed men while dying to protect me. I will not abandon him." Footsteps approached from multiple directions, and Ethan knew they were out of time, out of options, out of everything except the choice between dying here or dying running. Then Dakota did something that broke both their hearts. The shepherd pulled away from Maya's hands and stood, swaying, barely conscious, and positioned himself between Maya and the approaching threat. He couldn't fight anymore, couldn't run, could barely stand. But he could be a wall of fur and loyalty between his handler and the people trying to kill her. He could die doing his job one last time. Ethan understood the gift Dakota was giving them. 30 seconds, maybe a minute before he fell, and the operators realized he was just a dying dog, not an active threat. 30 seconds to create distance. Maya, we have to go, right now.
I can't leave him. He's not giving you a choice. He's buying us time the only way he can.
Ethan grabbed her arm and pulled, hating himself for it, hating everything about this situation that made abandoning a dying dog the tactical necessity. We honor him by surviving. That's all we can do. They ran, and behind them Dakota's final act of service played out in snarls and gunfire, and the terrible sound of a loyal animal refusing to quit, even when quitting meant peace. Maya sobbed while running, and Ethan guided her through the forest with one hand while counting rounds with the other. 6 bullets against at least 4 operators, and he'd already used 3, saving them from the cabin, which meant he had 3 left for whatever came next. His phone buzzed. Text from Agent Hall. HRT 2 minutes out. Hang on. 2 minutes. 120 seconds. Ethan had survived longer in worse situations, but never while protecting someone who couldn't see and was breaking from leaving her dog to die.
Pierce's voice called through the trees, loud enough for them to hear. "Cross, it's over. We have your position triangulated. We have you outnumbered, and your rescue's not getting here in time. You surrender now. I promise Agent Chen a quick death. You make us chase you, and I let my men do whatever they want before they kill her." Ethan stopped moving and pulled Maya into cover behind a rock formation. "Stay here. Stay quiet. HRT's almost here." "Where are you going?" "To buy 2 more minutes." Ethan checked his weapon one last time. 3 rounds, and the understanding that 3 rounds against 4 operators meant he needed to be perfect, and stepped out of cover where Pierce could see him. "It's just me, Dave. Agent Chen's gone. Made it to the extraction point while you were chasing shadows." Ethan's voice carried through the forest. "So it's you and me now, seal to seal. How we should have settled this from the start." Pierce appeared through the trees, flanked by 2 operators, and Ethan understood immediately that he'd miscounted. Not 4 hostiles, 5, which meant the math was even worse than he thought. "You're lying," Pierce said. "She's behind that rock formation, blind, terrified, waiting for you to save her like you saved everyone else during your deployments, because that's what you do. That's who you are. The hero who can't leave anyone behind. And you're the traitor who sold everything we fought for to a criminal who's killed more Americans than we ever saved. So yeah, I guess we both know who we are now." Pierce raised his weapon, and Ethan saw the calculation in his eyes. The same tactical assessment they'd both been trained to make. 3 rounds versus 5 shooters meant Ethan was about to die, and they both knew it. Then helicopter rotors cut through the forest canopy, and Pierce's face showed the understanding that he'd run out of time, that FBI was here, that everything he'd built over 4 years was collapsing. "This isn't over," Pierce said, already moving back into the trees. "Zhao owns people everywhere. You think you've won because you got Morrison? She's 1 senator. We have 3 more. Plus the federal judges. Plus the law enforcement network. You cut off 1 head, and 2 more grow back." "Then we'll keep cutting." Ethan kept his weapon trained on Pierce's retreating form. "And eventually we'll run out of heads to cut. And you'll be sitting in federal prison trying to figure out when $40 million stopped being worth your soul." Pierce vanished into the forest, and Ethan heard the operators retreating with him, pulling back, because trained professionals knew when tactical advantage had shifted and when holding position meant capture. FBI. Hostage rescue team emerged from 3 directions with weapons raised and voices shouting commands about federal agents and hands visible. And Ethan dropped to his knees with his weapon on the ground and his hands laced behind his head. Because that's how you survived encounters with federal tactical teams. Maya was pulled from behind the rock formation by an HRT medic, who immediately started treating her injuries, while she kept asking about Dakota, kept saying his name like prayer or mourning, or both. Agent Hall appeared, supervisory agent credentials visible, taking command of the scene. "Commander Cross? That's me. Where's Zhao?" "Back at the cabin last I saw, wounded by Maya's K9. Might still be there, might have run. He have at least 5 operators with him, including Commander David Pierce, Navy SEAL, who's been working as his head of security for 4 years. Hall was already calling in coordinates, directing teams, treating this like the major operation it was.
And Agent Chen's evidence, the laptop? Destroyed. But she says you have backup files?
Complete case files on 17 federal officials, including Senator Patricia Morrison, who's already in custody. Plus financial records on Zhao's entire network. Hall looked at Ethan with something that might have been respect. "You saved her life. Without her testimony authenticating those files, defense attorneys would have torn our case apart on chain of custody issues." "I didn't save her. Her dog did. German shepherd named Dakota. He's back there somewhere. Took 3 bullets protecting her. Bought us time to escape." Ethan's voice cracked, and he stopped talking because if he kept going, he'd start crying. And SEALs didn't cry in front of federal agents they'd just met. Hall nodded to a team. "Find the K9. If he's alive, get him to a veterinary trauma center. Priority transport."
They scattered to search, and Ethan sat down hard because the adrenaline was wearing off and the reality was setting in. He'd survived. Maya had survived. And maybe justice would survive too, if the system worked the way it was supposed to, for once. Maya called his name, and he went to her, kneeling beside the medic who was treating her head wound. "I'm here." Her hand found his face with the accuracy of someone who'd learned to navigate by sound and touch. "Dakota. Did they find him?" "They're looking." "Ethan, I need to know. Did I leave him to die? Did I abandon him when he needed me?" "You let him do his job. That's what working dogs want. Purpose, mission, the chance to die protecting what matters." Ethan took her hand. "You didn't abandon him. You honored him by surviving. That's all any partner can ask."
She cried against his shoulder, and HRT worked around them, and somewhere in the forest, teams were searching for a German shepherd who'd proven loyalty transcended species, and courage looked like a 3-legged dog, refusing to quit. An hour later, they found Dakota. Alive. Barely, but alive. The veterinary trauma surgeon came out of the operating room 6 hours after Dakota had been airlifted to Denver, and Maya could hear the exhaustion in his voice before he even spoke. She'd been sitting in the waiting area with Ethan beside her, his hand holding hers, both of them too wired to sleep, despite the adrenaline crash that wanted to pull them under. "Agent Chen?" The surgeon's footsteps approached and stopped. "I'm Dr. Robert Castellano. I've been working on Dakota." Maya stood so fast she nearly fell, and Ethan steadied her. "Is he alive?" "He's alive. Barely. The next 48 hours are critical." Castellano's voice carried the careful neutrality of someone delivering news that could go either way. "We extracted 2 bullet fragments. The third had already worked its way out, probably during his final defensive action. He's lost significant blood, has damage to his right shoulder joint, and internal bleeding that we've managed to control, but can't guarantee won't recur." "Can I see him?" "He's in recovery, heavily sedated. He won't know you're there." "I'll know I'm there. That's what matters." Maya's voice broke on the last word, and Ethan's arm went around her shoulders, holding her up when her legs wanted to give out. Castellano led them to recovery, and Maya's hands found Dakota's still form on the surgical table.
her fingers tracing his head, his ears, the bandages covering his wounds. "Hey, boy. Hey, Dakota. I'm here. You're safe now. You did your job, and now you get to rest."
The shepherd's breathing was shallow but steady, and Maya felt each breath like a prayer being answered. Ethan stood behind her, and she could feel his presence, solid and warm, and the only thing keeping her grounded.
"The shoulder damage," Maya said quietly. "How bad?"
Castellano hesitated, and Maya understood immediately that hesitation meant worse than he wanted to say out loud. "Severe. The joint's compromised. With extensive physical therapy, he might regain partial function, but he'll never be a working canine again. The FBI's K9 program will likely recommend medical retirement." Maya's hands stilled on Dakota's fur.
"He's 5 years old. He's got years left to serve."
"He's got years left to live, but not to serve. Not in the field." The surgeon's voice carried genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry, Agent Chen. I know what these dogs mean to their handlers. But the injury's too severe. He did everything his body could do, and then some. Now his body's telling him it's time to rest." After Castellano left, Maya stood with Dakota for 20 minutes, not speaking, just touching him, memorizing the feel of him breathing, because she couldn't see him anymore, and touch was all she had left.
"He saved my life multiple times today," she finally said. "Took bullets meant for me. Attacked armed men while dying. Held off Zhao's operators so we could escape. And now his career's over because he was too loyal to let me die."
Ethan's hand found her shoulder. "He did his job. Best any canine ever did it. That's what matters."
"It doesn't feel like enough."
Maya's voice went hollow.
"Nothing feels like enough anymore."
They left Dakota in recovery, and Ethan took Maya to a hospital room where doctors examined her eyes with equipment she couldn't see and delivered a diagnosis she'd already known in her gut since the crash. "Bilateral optic nerve damage," the ophthalmologist said, his voice carrying the practiced gentleness of someone who delivered bad news professionally. "The trauma from the crash caused swelling that compressed both optic nerves. We can operate to relieve the pressure, but the damage that's already occurred is likely permanent." Maya sat very still while the words settled like lead in her chest. Likely permanent, but not definitely? There's a 5 to 10% chance of partial vision recovery with aggressive treatment and time. But Agent Chen, I need you to prepare for the probability that your blindness is going to be your new normal. How long before we know for certain? 6 months, maybe a year? The optic nerves heal slowly, if they heal at all. The doctor paused. "I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear." After he left, Maya sat in silence, and Ethan sat with her, not trying to fix it, not offering empty platitudes, just being present in the way that mattered more than words. "My career's over," Maya said finally. "FBI doesn't have blind field agents. They'll put me on disability, give me a desk job, maybe, if I'm lucky. But everything I worked for, everything I built, it's gone. You brought down a billion-dollar criminal network, exposed 17 corrupt federal officials, saved lives that would have been lost to fentanyl trafficking. That's not gone. That's permanent. I can't see, Ethan. I can't drive, can't shoot, can't do surveillance, can't do any of the things that made me good at my job." Her hands found her face, and she wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come because crying felt like surrender. "I'm 28 years old, and my life is over." "Your life isn't over. It's different. There's a difference. Easy for you to say. You can still see." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried something raw and honest. "After my last deployment, I came home with PTSD so bad I couldn't sleep more than 2 hours at a time. Couldn't be in crowds, couldn't hear loud noises without dropping into combat mode.
Spent 6 months thinking my life was over because I couldn't be the SEAL I used to be. What changed? Nothing changed. I just accepted that the person I used to be wasn't coming back and started figuring out who I was going to be instead. His hand found hers. You're still Maya Chen. Still the woman who spent 2 years building an impossible case. Still the agent who survived a murder attempt and protected evidence while blind. Your eyes don't work anymore, but your brain does. Your courage does. Your refusal to quit does. That's enough to build a whole new life on. Maya wanted to believe him, but belief felt impossible when everything was darkness and uncertainty and the understanding that she'd never see her own face again, never see sunset or her mother's smile, or the way Dakota looked at her with absolute trust. I don't know how to be blind, she whispered. Then you learn. Same way you learn to be FBI, one day at a time, until it stops feeling impossible. Agent Hall arrived 3 hours later with news that Maya could hear was good from the energy in his voice. Morrison's talking. Gave up 6 more names in exchange for a plea deal that takes the death penalty off the table. We've arrested 4 of them already. The other 2 are in the wind, but we'll find them. Maya sat up straighter. What about Zhao? Still missing. We found blood at the cabin where Dakota attacked him. Tracked it for half a mile. Then it disappeared. Either he got medical help, or he's dead in the woods somewhere. We're searching. Hall paused. And Pierce? Also missing. But we've frozen his financial accounts, issued international warrants, and alerted every agency with jurisdiction. He can run, but he can't hide forever. He's SEAL trained. He can hide for years if he wants to. Not from the people I've got looking for him. Hall's voice went hard. Maya, I need to ask you about testifying. The grand jury's already issued indictments based on your backup files, but the trial's going to require you on the stand, authenticating the evidence, explaining your investigative methods, establishing chain of custody. I'm blind. I know. But you're also the only person who can testify to how this evidence was gathered and why it's reliable. Defense attorneys are going to argue the files were tampered with, that the chain of custody is broken, that you violated protocols in gathering intelligence. We need you to refute those arguments. Maya felt the weight of expectation pressing down and wanted to scream that she'd already given enough, already sacrificed her eyes and her career and nearly her life. When's the trial? 6 months, maybe 8. We're coordinating with DOJ on the prosecution strategy. Hall moved closer, and his voice softened. Maya, you don't have to decide now. You've been through hell. You need time to heal, to adjust, to figure out what comes next. I'm just telling you that when you're ready, we need you. After Hall left, a physical therapist arrived with orientation and mobility training materials, and Maya spent 2 hours learning how to navigate a hospital room without sight, how to trail walls with her hands, how to use sound to orient herself, how to exist in a world that had become nothing but darkness and touch and sound. Ethan watched without commenting, and when the therapist finally left, he asked the question Maya had been dreading. What do you want to do after you're discharged? Where do you want to go? I don't know. My apartment's in D.C., but I can't navigate it blind. Can't take care of myself there alone. Then don't be alone. Stay with me. I've got a house in Colorado Springs. Single story, simple layout, easy to learn. You can have time to adjust, to figure things out, to decide what comes next, without pressure. Maya's first instinct was to refuse, because accepting help felt like admitting defeat. But her second instinct, the one that had learned to trust Ethan over the past 36 hours, understood that pride was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. Why would you do that? You barely know me.
I know you well enough. I know you're tough and smart and brave enough to testify against people who tried to kill you. I know your dog took 3 bullets protecting you, because that's the kind of handler you are, worth dying for. And I know you saved my life by pulling that weapon on Pierce when he had me pinned. Ethan's voice went quiet. We survived something terrible together. That creates a bond. I'm offering you time and space to heal. That's all. That's not all, and you know it. Okay. It's also offering friendship from someone who understands what it's like when your body stops working the way it used to, and you have to rebuild everything from scratch. Maya felt tears finally come and let them fall, because Ethan had earned the right to see her cry. I'm terrified.
I'm so terrified I can barely breathe. I know, but you breathe anyway. That's what courage is. They brought Dakota out of recovery 4 days later, and Maya was there when he woke up, her hands on his face, her voice the first thing he heard. Hey boy. Hey Dakota. I'm here. You're safe. You did so good. Dakota whined and tried to stand, but his injured shoulder couldn't support his weight. He fell and Maya caught him, cradling his head while he panted, and looked at her with eyes that held confusion and pain, and the understanding that something fundamental had changed. I know it hurts, Maya whispered. I know you don't understand why. But you're going to heal. We're both going to heal. And we're going to do it together, because you're my partner, and I don't quit on my partners. Dr. Castellano stood nearby, watching, and when Dakota finally settled, exhausted from the effort of waking, the surgeon spoke carefully. Agent Chen, I need to discuss Dakota's long-term prognosis.
He's going to recover. You said he'd survive.
He'll survive, but the shoulder damage is more extensive than we initially thought. Even with physical therapy, with the best care possible, he's looking at maybe 60% function in that leg. He'll walk with a limp. He'll tire easily. He won't be able to run or jump or do the kind of physical work FBI K9’s require. Maya's hands tightened on Dakota's fur. So, what are you saying? I'm saying the FBI K9 program is going to retire him on medical disability. He'll need a home, someone to care for him, to do his physical therapy, to adjust his life to his new limitations. Castellano paused. Handlers typically get first option to adopt their retired partners. But Agent Chen, with your visual impairment, taking care of a disabled K9 might be... I'll take him. Maya's voice left no room for argument. Dakota and I are both disabled now. We'll figure it out together. With all due respect, you're blind. Dakota needs extensive care, medications on schedule, physical therapy twice daily, monitoring for complications. How are you going to manage that when you can't see? I'll manage because I have to. Because he took bullets for me. Because he earned the right to retire with dignity and care, and someone who loves him. Maya's jaw set. And because refusing him when he needs me would make me the kind of person I never want to be. Ethan stepped forward. She won't be alone. I'll help. We'll make it work. Castellano looked between them, and something in his expression softened. Okay, I'll process the adoption paperwork. But understand, this is a commitment. Dakota's going to need you for years. And there will be hard days when his pain is bad, when therapy isn't progressing, when he looks at you with confusion about why his body doesn't work anymore. I know those days, Maya said quietly. I'm living one right now. They brought Dakota to Ethan's house in Colorado Springs 2 weeks later, and Maya spent the first day learning the layout, trailing walls, counting steps, memorizing distances. Dakota limped beside her, both of them navigating disability together, both of them learning that limitation didn't mean defeat. Ethan cooked dinner, and Maya sat at the table feeling useless because she couldn't help, couldn't contribute, couldn't do anything except sit blind while someone else managed her life. "Stop it," Ethan said, reading her mood with the accuracy of someone who'd been watching her carefully for weeks. "Stop what?" "Hating yourself for needing help. It's exhausting to watch, and probably worse to feel." "I don't hate myself. I hate being helpless." "You're not helpless. You're recovering. There's a difference." Ethan set a plate in front of her and guided her hand to the fork. "Eat. Then we're doing Dakota's physical therapy together, and you're going to learn how to manage his care routine blind, because sitting around feeling sorry for yourself doesn't help anyone." The bluntness shocked her, and then made her laugh despite everything. "You're kind of an asshole, you know that?" "I prefer brutally honest. Sounds better on my SEAL evaluation reports." They settled into a routine over the following weeks. Mornings spent on Dakota's physical therapy, with Maya learning to feel for swelling and heat and the subtle signs of pain. Afternoons on Maya's orientation training with Ethan describing the world, and Maya learning to build mental maps from sound and touch. Evenings preparing for the upcoming trial, with Maya dictating testimony to voice-to-text software and memorizing the evidence she could no longer see. Agent Hall visited monthly with updates. Morrison's plea deal had broken open the entire network. 11 federal officials convicted, 4 more awaiting trial. Zhao's financial empire dismantled. The fentanyl trafficking routes disrupted. Lives saved that would have been lost. But Zhao himself remained missing, and Commander David Pierce had vanished so completely that even CIA couldn't track him. "He's out there somewhere," Hall said during one visit. "Zhao probably moved him to a different operation. New identity, new location, new assignment. We might never find him." "We'll find him," Maya said with absolute certainty. "Because men like Pierce can't stay quiet forever. They need to feel important, need to prove they're still relevant. Eventually he'll surface, and when he does, we'll be waiting." 6 months after the crash, Maya stood in a federal courtroom she couldn't see and raised her right hand to swear an oath to tell the truth. Dakota sat beside her wearing his service vest, retired but still working as her guide. And when the prosecutor asked Maya to authenticate the evidence she'd gathered, her voice carried across the courtroom with absolute authority. Every transaction in those files was legally obtained. Every wiretap had proper warrants. Every witness statement was given voluntarily. And every word is true. Maya turned her blind eyes toward where she knew the jury sat. "I gave my eyesight to protect this evidence. My K9 partner gave 3 years of his career to protect me while I gathered it. We paid the price for truth. Now I'm asking you to honor that price by holding these defendants accountable." The jury deliberated for 6 hours and came back with guilty verdicts on every count. Senator Patricia Morrison received 25 years federal prison. The other convicted officials received sentences ranging from 10 to 40 years. Victor Zhao was convicted in absentia and remained missing. David Pierce was indicted, but couldn't be tried without being found. And Maya Chen walked out of that courthouse with her hand on Dakota's harness, Ethan beside her, and the understanding that justice wasn't always complete, but sometimes partial victory was enough. That night, Maya stood in Ethan's kitchen making coffee with muscle memory and measured movements, Dakota sleeping at her feet, and felt something shift inside her. Not healing exactly, more like acceptance. Her eyes were gone, but she was still here, still breathing, still capable of more than she'd believed possible in those first terrifying days of blindness. "I'm going to train as a federal consultant," she told Ethan. "Financial crimes cases that need someone who understands cryptocurrency laundering and organized crime networks. I can do the analysis even blind, can testify as an expert witness, can teach other agents what I learned building the Zhao case." Ethan set down his own coffee, and she heard the smile in his voice. "That's good.
Really good. And I'm going to train Dakota as a guide dog. Not just for me. We're going to do therapy work, visit hospitals, show other disabled people that limitation isn't the end of everything. Dakota would be good at that. He's got the temperament for it. Maya turned toward Ethan's voice. And I think I might be falling in love with you. Which is probably the worst tactical decision I've made in a year full of bad tactical decisions. But I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it. The silence stretched, and Maya's heart hammered, because she'd just exposed herself completely. And maybe Ethan didn't feel the same. Maybe she'd misread everything. Maybe... His hand found her face with gentleness that made her breath catch. Falling in love with you was the easiest decision I've made since deciding to save your life in that ravine.
He kissed her, and Maya kissed him back, and Dakota woke up and pressed against both their legs like he was blessing this union between the two humans who'd saved each other and him in equal measure. And somewhere in the darkness that had become Maya's world, she understood that sight wasn't the only way to see what mattered. 18 months after the crash, Maya was teaching a class of FBI financial crimes investigators about cryptocurrency laundering when her phone buzzed with a call from Agent Hall that made her pause mid-sentence. She excused herself, and Dakota followed her into the hallway, his limp barely noticeable now after months of therapy, and the kind of determination that made three-legged dogs run like four-legged ones.
Marcus, what's wrong?
We found Pierce. Hall's voice carried urgency that meant this wasn't a routine update. Or rather, he found us. He's requesting protective custody in exchange for testimony against Zhao's entire network. Says he knows where Zhao's hiding and can deliver him. Maya's hand tightened on the phone.
It's a trap. Pierce doesn't flip. He's SEAL-trained. He's been Zhao's head of security for years. This is Zhao trying to draw us out.
That's what I thought too, until Pierce sent verification. Photos of Zhao's current location, financial records we didn't have, names of operators we didn't know existed. Maya, if he's legitimate, this could be the break we need to finally bring Zhao in.
And if he's not legitimate, it's an ambush designed to eliminate the witnesses who can testify against the people Zhao still has on his payroll.
Maya navigated the hallway with the confidence of someone who'd learned to trust sound and spatial memory more than sight.
Where is he?
Denver Federal Building. Walked in 2 hours ago, surrendered his weapon, and asked for you specifically. Says he'll only talk to the blind FBI agent whose dog he shot. His words, not mine. Maya felt ice slide down her spine, because Pierce asking for her specifically meant this was personal, meant whatever he wanted involved more than just testimony. I'm in D.C., can't get to Denver for hours. He says he'll wait, but Maya, you don't have to do this. We can interview him without you, can get his testimony and... No, if Pierce is really offering to flip, I want to look him in the eyes when he explains why he sold out to a man who's killed thousands of Americans with fentanyl money. Maya paused. Except, I can't look him in the eyes anymore, so I'll settle for hearing the truth in his voice. Ethan met her at the airport with Dakota, both of them understanding without being told that this was dangerous. That Pierce requesting Maya specifically could mean a dozen different things, and most of them ended with someone dying. You don't have to face him, Ethan said on the drive to Denver. Hall can handle the interview. You can review the transcript later. Pierce shot my dog, tried to kill us both. Worked for a criminal network that's destroyed more American lives than I can count. Maya's jaw set. I need to face him. Need to understand how a SEAL who swore to protect this country ended up betraying everything that oath meant. Maybe you won't like the answer. I already don't like the answer, but I need to hear it anyway. The federal building was locked down tighter than Maya had ever experienced.
metal detectors and armed guards, and the kind of security that said they were taking Pierce's appearance seriously. Hall met them in the lobby, and his voice carried warning. "He's in interview room 3, waived his right to an attorney, says he wants to confess everything on record. But Maya, I watched him through the glass for the last hour. He's different. Not the operator we expected. Something's broken in him." "Good. Broken means honest. Whole means dangerous." Maya followed Hall through corridors Dakota navigated with practiced ease. The shepherd's presence, a reminder that loyalty could survive 3 bullets, and betrayal couldn't. Interview room 3 smelled like fear and stale coffee, and the particular tension that came from sitting across from someone who might be your salvation or your execution. Maya heard Pierce stand when she entered, heard the scrape of his chair and the sharp inhale that said seeing her blind had affected him in ways he hadn't anticipated. "Agent Chen." Pierce's voice sounded older than Maya remembered, worn down by something that sounded like exhaustion, or guilt, or both. "Thank you for coming." "Don't thank me yet. I'm here to watch you confess to treason, or call you a liar. Haven't decided which." Maya sat across from where Hall indicated Pierce was positioned, and Dakota settled at her feet, a living reminder of what Pierce had done. "Agent Hall says you want to testify against Zhao.
Want to tell me why I should believe anything you say?"
"Because I'm dying." The words dropped flat and final. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Doctors give me maybe 6 months. And I've spent the last 18 months since Colorado realizing that $40 million doesn't mean much when you can't spend it without looking over your shoulder, and you're dying alone because everyone you ever cared about knows you're a traitor." Maya felt the statement settle and understood this wasn't the answer she'd expected. Wasn't the clean redemption arc or the tactical play. This was just a man facing mortality and trying to salvage something from the wreckage of his choices. "So you're dying, and suddenly you want to make amends? That's convenient." It's pathetic, but it's also true. Pierce's breathing was labored, and Maya recognized the sound of someone in pain. "I can give you Zhao.
Can give you his current location, his financial networks, the names of every federal official still on his payroll, the complete structure of his organization. Everything I know in exchange for witness protection for the time I have left, and the chance to die, knowing I didn't completely destroy everything I used to stand for." Ethan spoke for the first time, his voice hard as steel. "You shot Maya's dog, tried to kill her, worked for a man who's killed thousands. What makes you think you deserve witness protection, or redemption, or anything except dying in federal prison?" "I don't deserve it, but the information I have could save lives, could stop the next generation of Zhao's network from filling the gap his arrest creates." Pierce paused, and when he spoke again, his voice cracked. "I know what I did. I know what I became. But I'm asking you to separate the value of the intelligence from the worthlessness of the person providing it." Maya sat in silence, while Dakota's breathing provided steady rhythm, and she thought about justice versus utility, about whether accepting help from evil people made you complicit in their evil, or just pragmatic about saving future victims. "Tell me where Zhao is," she said finally. "Belize, coastal compound outside Placencia, guarded by 8 operators, all former special forces. He's been there since Colorado, running his network remotely, waiting for the heat to die down before he tries to rebuild his U.S. operations." Pierce pulled out papers, and Maya heard them slide across the table. Satellite photos, guard rotation schedules, compound layout, weapons inventory. Everything you need for a tactical operation. Hall was already on his phone, calling in coordinates, mobilizing teams. Maya listened to the operational planning and felt the familiar pull of wanting to be part of it,
wanting to be the one who brought Zhao in. But knowing her blindness meant she was a liability in tactical situations. "I want to be there," she said quietly. Hall stopped mid-sentence. "Maya, you can't. You're a consultant now, not a field agent. And even if you were, sending a blind agent into a hostile compound is letting me finish what started when Zhao tried to kill me 18 months ago." Maya's voice went hard. "I'm not asking to breach the compound. I'm asking to be present when you bring him in. To be there when he realizes the blind FBI agent he couldn't kill is watching him get arrested."
"She comes with me," Ethan said. "I'll keep her safe. You focus on Zhao." Hall considered for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay. But you stay back, stay protected, and if things go sideways, you extract immediately. Those are non-negotiable conditions."
The operation launched 72 hours later, with FBI hostage rescue team coordinating with Belizean authorities for a dawn raid on Zhao's compound. Maya and Ethan were positioned a quarter-mile back with communications equipment, and Dakota listening to the tactical chatter as teams moved into position. "Breach in 30 seconds, the HRT commander's voice crackled through the radio. "All units stand by." Maya's hands gripped Dakota's harness, and she felt the shepherd tense, his training recognizing the cadence of pre-combat preparation, even retired. Ethan's hand found her shoulder and squeezed once, grounding her. The breach happened fast. Explosive charges, flashbangs, voices shouting "federal agents," and hands visible. Maya heard it all through the radio and imagined what she couldn't see. Built the operation in her mind from sound and memory, and the experience of 100 briefings. "Compound secure. 8 hostiles in custody. Searching for primary target." Minutes stretched, and Maya's chest tightened because searching meant they hadn't found Zhao immediately. Meant he might have slipped away again, might have anticipated this and run. Then a voice she'd spent 18 months trying to forget came through the radio, calm and professional, and carrying the arrogance of someone who believed he was untouchable. "Agent Chen, I assume you're listening. I want to negotiate." Hall's voice cut in. "Victor Zhao, you're surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." "I'll come out. But first I want to speak with Agent Chen. Directly. Face to face. Or I destroy the drives containing evidence of the federal officials you don't know about yet. The ones who aren't in Agent Chen's files. The ones who'll keep my network running even after I'm in prison." Maya grabbed the radio before Hall could respond. "This is Agent Chen. What do you want?" "I want to see the woman who destroyed my empire. Want to look at you and understand what made you worth all this trouble?" Zhao's voice carried curiosity and menace. "You come to the compound. Walk in blind and helpless. Let me see that I took something from you, even though you took everything from me. Do that, and I give you the drives with the additional names." "It's a trap," Ethan said immediately. "He wants you close so he can kill you before HRT can stop him." "Probably. But if there really are more names, more officials we haven't identified, they need to be exposed." Maya stood, and Dakota rose with her. "I'm going in." "Maya, no! Ethan, I've been blind for 18 months. I've learned to navigate, to fight, to survive without sight. And I've got a 3-legged dog who's proven loyalty beats ability every single time." She turned toward his voice. "Trust me, like I trusted you in that forest when I couldn't see, and you were the only thing keeping me alive." The walk to the compound took 5 minutes that felt like 5 hours. Ethan on her right, Dakota on her left. HRT operators surrounding them with weapons ready. Maya counted steps and listened to the sounds and built a mental map of her approach. Zhao stood in the compound courtyard, and Maya knew when she'd reached him, because his breathing carried the particular rhythm of someone in pain, and she remembered Pierce saying Zhao had been wounded when Dakota attacked him. "Agent Chen, you look different than I expected." Zhao's voice held genuine curiosity. "Blind, but still standing, still fighting. I took your eyes, but I didn't break you. That's impressive." "You didn't take my eyes. A car crash did that. You just created the circumstances." Maya stood straight. Dakota pressed against her leg. "Where are the drives?" "First, I want to understand something."
Why? Why chase me for 2 years when you could have taken easier cases with better career advancement? Why risk everything for a case that almost killed you?
Maya thought about her mother working 3 jobs, about immigrant communities destroyed by the drugs Zhao's money laundered, about the 19 federal officials who'd betrayed their oaths for his cash. Because you represent everything wrong with power that's unaccountable. Because you've killed thousands and smiled while doing it. Because someone had to care enough to stop you. Caring is weakness. It makes you vulnerable. Zhao moved closer, and Dakota's growl was immediate, protective. "Your dog learned that. Took 3 bullets caring about you. Now he's crippled. Now he's retired with honor, having saved lives, including mine. That's not weakness. That's purpose." Maya's voice went quiet. "You'll die in prison, never understanding that difference.
Never understanding that loyalty and courage matter more than money and power."
Zhao was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, sharp and bitter. "The drives are in my office safe. Combination is your badge number. I've been waiting 18 months to see if you'd figure that out." HRT moved immediately, and minutes later emerged with hard drives containing files that would lead to 14 more arrests, millions more in seized assets, and the complete dismantling of Zhao's network. Victor Zhao was arrested without incident and extradited to the United States, where he faced charges carrying life without parole. David Pierce testified against Zhao and 12 other defendants, providing intelligence that prevented 4 planned terrorist attacks and exposed corruption networks across 6 federal agencies. He died in witness protection 8 months later, never receiving forgiveness, but having earned the right to die, knowing his final act meant something.
Maya Chen became the FBI's leading consultant on cryptocurrency crime, teaching courses, testifying as expert witness, and building cases that brought down networks Zhao's arrest had exposed. Her blindness became her trademark, the agent who saw patterns others missed, precisely because she couldn't rely on sight. Ethan Cross left active SEAL duty and started a non-profit helping disabled veterans adapt to civilian life, using his own PTSD recovery and Maya's blindness journey as proof that limitation could be transformed into purpose. And Dakota, the 3-legged German shepherd who'd taken bullets protecting his handler, became a therapy dog visiting hospitals and rehabilitation centers, showing wounded warriors and disabled children that courage looked like standing back up after life knocked you down, and kept knocking. 2 years after the crash, Maya stood in a VA hospital with Dakota beside her and the young Marine in front of her who'd lost both legs to an IED and couldn't see the point of living anymore. "I can't see," Maya told him. "Can't drive, can't shoot, can't do most of the things that made me who I thought I was. My dog can't run like he used to, can't serve like he was trained to. But we're both still here, still useful, still capable of more than we thought possible when we first became disabled." "How do you do it?" the Marine asked, his voice carrying the same brokenness Maya recognized from her own early days of blindness. "How do you keep going when everything's gone?" Maya knelt and guided the Marine's hand to Dakota's head, letting him feel the scars, the missing leg, the physical proof of survival. "You find new purpose. You accept help.
You trust that the person you're becoming can be just as valuable as the person you used to be. She paused.
And you remember that courage isn't about being whole. It's about being broken and choosing to keep fighting anyway. 3 years after the crash, Maya married Ethan in a ceremony she couldn't see, but could feel in every word spoken, every hand held, every promise made. Dakota walked her down the aisle, wearing a bow tie and limping with dignity that made half the guests cry. Agent Hall attended and brought news that the final Zhao network defendant had been convicted, that the fentanyl trafficking routes had been permanently disrupted, that lives were being saved because one blind FBI agent had refused to quit when quitting would have been easier. And Maya understood in that moment that sight wasn't the only way to see what mattered, that wholeness wasn't required for purpose, and that sometimes the greatest victories came from people who'd lost everything, except the determination to keep fighting for what was right.
She'd started this journey terrified and helpless, unable to see, and convinced her life was over. She ended it knowing that darkness could be navigated, that disability could be transcended, and that courage lived in ordinary people who decided that broken didn't mean defeated. Dakota pressed against her leg, and Maya's hand found his head, feeling the steady warmth there, the uncomplicated loyalty that had survived 3 bullets and medical retirement, and the transformation from working K9 to therapy dog who saved lives in completely different ways. Ethan's hand found hers, and she squeezed it, grateful for the seal who'd saved her life, and then taught her how to build a new one from the wreckage of the old.
And somewhere in federal prison, Victor Zhao served his sentence, knowing that the blind FBI agent he'd tried to erase had instead erased him, proving that justice didn't require sight. It just required people who gave enough of a damn to fight for it, even when fighting cost them everything. Maya Chen had paid the price with her eyes. Dakota had paid it with his career. But they'd won anyway, proving that sometimes victory looked like surviving when the world expected you to break, like standing when falling was easier, like seeing truth even in darkness. That was enough. That would always be enough. And that was the only legacy worth leaving behind.